Was there any part of Director Mueller's testimony you found unsatisfying?
Look, I wish that he had testified in more narrative fashion, that the words didn't need to be coaxed from him as much as they did.
You were talking, you were hoping it would bring it alive, is what you said, I think, last week, right?
And I think that it did, but it came alive.
That was House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff giving his take on former Special Counsel Robert Mueller's hearing. Pro-impeachment Democrats had long hoped that Mueller's testimony would be the catalyst for the House to unite around opening an inquiry into President Trump. That hasn't happened thus far. 5 days after the hearing, CBS News counts 105 House Democrats who back an impeachment inquiry. That's less than half the number needed to take that step. The former special counsel refused to go outside of the bounds of his report, fulfilling his promise from May that the report is his testimony. That frustrated lawmakers in both parties. Mueller even faced criticism for a handful of stumbles during the hearing. Rumors about Mueller's sharpness started last year, and now the Washington Post reports, quote, some lawmakers are privately wondering whether there was some truth to the rumors and whether they were right to force him to testify against his wishes. Matt Zapotosky co-wrote that article. He's a reporter for the Washington Post. Matt, thank you so much for being with us. You write that lawmakers are now worried that Mueller's acuity was an issue. Were there warning signs that emerged prior to his testimony?
Well, some lawmakers, I should say, feel that way. His team had really pushed to have his time on the Hill be limited. Just 2 hours in each hearing is what they strove for. At the last minute, he wanted a deputy to sit at his side and be sworn in. So in hindsight, they're looking back and saying, gosh, maybe we should have taken those rumors a little bit more seriously. But Mueller's defenders, those who worked with him, say, well, there's just nothing to that. Their disappointment, lawmakers' disappointment, they say, is just that Mueller disappointed them in a political sense. He didn't give them what they wanted. He didn't bring the report alive. He refused to even read sections out loud. And he had told the Hill that in advance and just made good on his word. And now his defenders, his team really feel like he's being, treated unfairly by the Hill with some of the critiques of his performance.
Well, I want to play an exchange between Mueller and Alabama Republican Congresswoman Martha Roby. Let's listen.
How many of the approximately 500 interviews conducted by the special conference did you attend personally?
Very few.
So Republicans have tried using that answer as a way to portray Mueller as not being involved in the investigation. Is that a fair attack? Do we know about how Mueller managed this probe?
We have some insight. It's true that he did not sit in on many interviews, but I would say that that's probably the case for anyone of his position. He functioned like a U.S. attorney running a U.S. attorney's office, and even though it would have been a very small one, only 17 or 18 prosecutors, at its high point, it's not like the U.S. attorney to kind of sit in on his investigators' interviews. We do know that Mueller, according to people who worked with him, people familiar with his investigation, say that he was an engaged leader. He sat in on every meeting with what he termed his team leaders, people assigned to lead specific aspects of his investigation. He wanted to ask questions, sort of got people right to the high level point. He was interested in the details, but didn't want to get lost in the weeds, I guess is the best way to put it. He was in the office around 8 a.m. every day, worked 9 to 10 hour days. So Republicans are using that line to say, well, this was a disengaged leader. All these people who had donated to Democrats underneath him were actually running the investigation, but talking to people with a little more intimate knowledge say from their experience that wasn't the case.
Interesting to hear from people who are familiar with how it actually took place that he sounds like he was very much present and involved. So we just heard House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff say it was still important to bring Mueller in to testify. Would it not have created another problem for them if they didn't get Mueller to speak publicly?
Yeah, that's what a lot of Democrats say. Look, of course it would have been more ideal if he had really illuminated sections of the report having to do with obstruction, maybe read them out loud, maybe put them in his own voice. But a lot of lawmakers say there would have been so many questions if the Democrats just relented and sort of let him sail off into the sunset with only his report there. We have, as a public, have just come to expect in these high-profile investigations that the leader is going to testify afterwards. You remember Jim Comey after the Hillary Clinton email investigation. And I think a lot of Democrats think we didn't really have a choice. And while this could have gone better, we had to do this.
So in the wake of this testimony, what steps do House Democrats now believe they need to take in order to convince more members, including House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, to back an impeachment inquiry?
Well, I think they've turned their attention to two different things. One is getting more of the underlying materials of Mueller's investigation. You've seen them take some steps in court to try to get those. The other thing I think you'll see them do is try to get the actual witnesses. You got to remember, Mueller was the investigator here, but he interviewed people, the former White House counsel Don McGahn, for example, who actually witnessed some of these possibly obstructive episodes, and they truly could bring them to life. So far, the White House has stymied lawmakers in getting those people on the Hill. They've asserted executive privilege, testimonial immunity, to block them from going. But Democrats, I think, now are probably going to try to go to court and press to get some of these witnesses in front of them and testify, and hope that they are able to bring the report to life in a way that Mueller wasn't able to.
All right, Matt Zapotosky, thank you so much, Matt, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.